Hi everyone, Hans here, engineering lead at the SDK team at DFINITY. I made this video about a week ago and we just finished editing it. This is still really rough and you can hear a lot of background noises, but we will do more of it and we will improve every time. We definitely love the experience at DFINITY and we're gonna probably do this a regular thing, which is great. In this video, we built a phone book app using DFX0413. We just released yesterday the 0.5.0 version of DFX, and it has a lot of features and upgrades and bug fixes and performance improvements. So a lot of bugs that you saw in this video have been fixed actually. So this is great. You can find all of this and more documentation at sdk.definity.org. Additionally, I wanted to say that we are looking for software engineers for the SDK team. The SDK team is looking to expand, and we want to hire a lot of people in the next quarter or two. The positions are available at Palo Alto or San Francisco, or in the Bay Area in general. So let us know, send us your resume. You can find more at definity.org/careers. Looking forward from hearing back from you. Please send us your feedback. Please send us your feature requests too on our forums or anywhere. And just remember, try DFX 0.5.0, hack it out. Without you, none of this would be possible, and it's really awesome. Thank you. Okay, so first, do I have DFX? I have DFX 0413 installed. To install it, I'm using fish as a shell. Our instructions are following a more, there you go, shell or bash copy-paste. So if you're using a copy-paste of the documentation, you need to use bash shell or z shell or any bash compatible. Since I'm using fish, I'm gonna just ensure that I'm reinstalling everything here. So you will have to accept, you basically use this line here to install the latest version of DFX. And you only need to do this once. After that, you can use DFX upgrade to upgrade DFX itself. And you you have to accept the license for now, for legal reasons. This is all beta software. We found the latest version is 0413 as of last week. We will not release a version of DFX this week. Instead, we'll have a little bit more of a lot more fixes and features next week, hopefully. And there you go. So it's installed in my user local bin. So if I do which DFX, it shows up that it's using this one. And if I do DFX version, I go to 0413. Because I don't like bash too much, I'm more used to using fish. I'm gonna go back to my fish prompt, and I'm gonna clear the screen and do DFX new. So DFX has multiple commands. It's a command line tool. You guys are probably used to such a tool if you worked with cloud software or any development kit. And so the way you create a new application is you do DFX new. Let's do phone book, because that's what it is. And we will just do this. There's no other flag that we need. So we create a bunch of files. We create all those files at dfx.json, which is the DFX configuration. Git ignore because we support Git by default if you have it installed. If you don't have Git installed, this file should not be present. A package.json because we want to develop for the front end. Again, there are flags for this. If you don't have Node installed, we will not create it, and we will not install Node dependencies. You can see that Node did some things. There is no repo field or license field in npm, which is expected. That's just that our package.json doesn't have those. We don't want to make license choices for you, so you probably should consider adding those fields. And then, well, as everything in Node, 488 packages is kind of a low number actually, but because, well, it's seems like a high number, but there's a lot of dependencies coming from Webpack that are necessary to build the front end part of DFX. And so we show you a pretty logo because we like showing you cool things that you can show your friends. And we have a list of links and then a little bit of a what to do next. Actually, that's not exactly what to do next, but that's a list of things that you can look at to have a better idea of what to do here. So I'm gonna launch my editor of choice, which is IntelliJ, and I'm gonna show up a little bit what the default project looks like using DFX. Please remember that this is all current. This is all what's going on right now. This will change tremendously. Oh yeah. Good thing I have a backup plan, because every good demoer should have a backup plan. I have VS Code here. I am not used too much to it, so don't expect really interesting like commands and stuff. I'm more used to IntelliJ, but essentially we'll use code which works. Anyway, so you can see that I have a .dfx which contains nothing for now, a .idea which is my IntelliJ folder, so I can delete this. We're not going to need it. And I have a source folder which contains all the source that we're going to use. And inside of it there's a public folder which contains index.js. Well, there's a phone book folder for the phone book canister, and inside of it there's a public and an index.js. We will talk more about this, but this is basically the base of the front end for my phone book canister. And inside of it, and inside the phone book canister, there is also a main.mo. So .mo is Motoko. It's a language that DFINITY is developing especially for building applications on the internet computer. It has its own syntax, which really is more tightly coupled with all the concept that we're talking about, like canisters, intercanister calls, context, getting context, etc., etc. Right now, DFX building canisters with DFX requires that you use Motoko, but in the future we could see like having a more because the DFINITY Internet Computer supports any kind of WASM with a system API, of course, but it can run any kind of WASM. We could see DFX being able to defer compilation to another process and then just use the output WASM to deploy on the canister. But at the current moment, DFX only builds Motoko code. And this is what it looks like. Unfortunately, syntax highlighting is not currently available, but you can see a little bit how it looks. We'll look a little bit deeper into it, but just want to show up that the default method when we create a new project is a greet. Greet takes a name and returns hello, concat, name, concat, bang. So pretty simple stuff. It takes a text, return a text. It's an asynchronous method. We'll talk about a little bit more update versus query methods soon, when we develop the Motoko part of our phone book. Getting more, like I said, dfx.json is your configuration. It has a list of canister, which right now contains only the phone book. If the front-end key is present, we will build front-end. For this, the entry point will be this, the index.js, and then the main entry point for the Motoko is the main.mo. Some defaults, a version of DFX that it's tied to, so your project will always run, or always try to run 4.13, and you should update to the version once you do your tests. And a version of this file exactly. One particular note here is that the reason these fields kind of seem out of place is because it's sorted alphabetically. This is something that, like, having a little bit more being a little bit more liberal on this file is a goal too. Like, for example, you can remove this field. Actually, let's remove this field, and it's going to use whatever version of DFX. So if you don't care actually about running a specific version of DFX for your project, then you should remove the field, and it will always use the one that's installed on your computer, even if it doesn't work. So careful with that. Okay, so let's go to the front-end part of this. Package.json, standard package.json for Node. We only depend on Webpack and Tensor Webpack. We will add a lot of this in this presentation, and hopefully I'm not going to make too many mistakes. Please excuse me if I do, but we will, a little bit of notes is that we will use React to build the front end. So for building the front end, the front end framework that we're going to use is going to be React. I'm from more an Angular background, but to tell you the truth, it's a little bit, when you start from a single JavaScript file, it's a little bit faster to just use React. But I'm coming up, for you Angular folks, I will come up with a an Angular schematics and an Angular builder that will just tie it into DFX so that you can use ng build, ng deploy, and ng test, and all those crazy things that you guys probably want to see from the Angular world. The reason I'm not doing that today is that it's not ready, and the reason I'm not just starting from scratch with Angular is that it's a little bit too long. And like, let's be honest, schematics just make everything easier. So if I can skip schematics for now, I'll do that, and later I'll do another stream where I use schematics, and you'll see that it's like basically 2 commands to do everything that we're, like the hour and a half that we're going to spend here is going to be done by 2 commands basically. A little readme that explained everything that you saw, pretty much the same document that you saw when we did ng-new, and then a webpack config that seems complex. We'll go through that. We'll come back to that file regularly. Essentially, what it does is that it builds aliases for your canisters, and it reads the dfx.json and then build everything from this. So your dfx.json needs to be valid JSON to run Webpack. And as you can see, it allows things. So let's go back to the index.js of our phone book. It allows things, simple things like import phone book from ic:/canisters/phonebook, which actually takes, when it builds the Motoko, it takes like all these interfaces that are public and then create functions in JavaScript that can be used as directly like this, basically. So to call our greet method, we have to import it from canister/phonebook. We call phonebook.greet. This will in turn call our Motoko greet with a text. In JavaScript and TypeScript, it's a string, and then returns a promise that returns a string once it's done. Returns a text in Motoko, so it's a string in JavaScript, and then we alert with the string. So the reason of like using prompt and alert for now is that all of this is done through through JavaScript, and the reason for that is because the JavaScript code is hosted, it's published to the DFINITY Internet Computer. So when we run the computer locally, we will build our phone book canister, and inside of it will include the WASM from our Motoko and our index.js, which is the output of the Webpack compilation. And you can get that index.js. I'll show you what happens basically. And then the web server that we're going to run locally will just contact this, and I'll show you what happens and how it happens. And essentially, we'll just contact this phone book to get the actual front-end code. So we do not publish front-end locally. We build it locally, and then we publish it with the canister, and everything is encapsulated inside the canister. One thing is The canister, when I talk about canisters, I've been saying that name over and over. I don't think I've defined it, but a canister essentially is it's a distributed app that contains your backend code, your front-end code, a lot of management things around it, an initial state, for example, and all of this is it contains your heap and your memory, and all of this is basically the encapsulation of your backend and your front end at the same time, and it lives on the internet computer. And that's the canister is basically what we interact with when we use DFX. You'll see the other commands to talk to canisters. Okay, so I think I did this a little bit longer than it needs to be for now, but just wanted to show up the beginning of it. Now we're gonna clear here. Seems like my kit is, oh yeah, I did that. So we don't need to do that for this demo, but you should do it if you want. This was removing the DFX version from dfx.json. Okay, so what I'm gonna do next is build. I'm gonna build the canister because that's what we do. So building canisters, as you can see, it's quite fast. Building the front end, so it builds the canister backend code to get the definitions, and then build the front end using webpack npm run build. And at the end, it uploads, it bundled the front-end assets, like the index.js, that it's the output, inside the canister. All of this took 4 seconds, 4.3 seconds. And we can see that like the outputs are stored in canisters. Okay. So canisters folder is kind of the output of the build compilation, the DFX build. So inside phone books, so there's 2 folders. There's all the IDL's definition, and we'll talk a little bit about that. IDL is our interface definition language for canisters interfaces, basically. So this is what we use to communicate. This is the type definition. For those of you who are more familiar with protobufs, this would be the .proto file. For those of you who are more familiar with the JSON life, this would be the JSON schema file. So this is basically the schema of the data of the interface that we're using to communicate with our canister. Inside the phone book, there's a bunch of files that are very distinct. The first one is the assets, which is the output of our compilation. So this is exactly what I compiled. So this is the result of compiling index.js. As you can see, it has a map file too, of course, and the canister ID. So every canister on the internet computer will have an ID, which is basically a bunch of bytes. So if I click this file, you'll see a bunch of garbled string here. The main.did, which is the did file, the interface definition for our service, for our actor. So you can see it's very simple. Greet is a function, a public function that takes a text and returns a text. Did.js is the JavaScript equivalent of this. So we build that so that you can link into it inside the JavaScript. And the main.js is essentially what takes the did.js and builds an agent from it. So this is what you import when you import. If I go back to index, and can I split vertically in this thing? And this is why I wanted to use the idea, because I have all my okay, so I guess I can split them. Apparently I can. Okay. So if I go to main.js here, so as you can see, when we import phone book, this is the default make actor factory, and which calls with the actor interface, which is basically the DID.js file, and inside of it, it calls it with the proper canister ID, which is this thing essentially, FA698C. And for those of you who have a really good memory and remember those kind of things, because nobody should, you'll notice that this is exactly the same ID as the IDL. So for multiple reasons, DFX and all the tooling, the build toolings that we have, needs to have both a named IDL, because the name of our canister is phone book, but really that name is just used locally on our DFX. And so we also need a list of IDL definition that are named using the actual ID that we're using. So this is why we have the IDL. And if we look at this file, this is exactly the same file as main.did, except that for reasons Motoko can refer to it by inside the computer itself, inside the internet computer, there's no phone book, does not exist. Phone book is not, there's no names for canisters, and for good reason. We can't really like expect everybody to find unique names for all the canisters. So we always use the canister ID, and in this case the canister ID is going to always be FA69. This is what the canister.id file contains, and so we need to have a DID file that's referred by its canister ID. So that's the short end of this. The main.wasm is, of course, what we will upload if we run DFX canister install. Of course, if I do this now, let's skip a step and phone book. If I do this now, you'll see that I get a beautiful error. Connection refused to 127.001.8000. We are working slowly. I'm going to say it like this. I'm going to say it really straightforward. We're working towards errors, but like oftentimes we are trying to prioritize errors that are cryptic. This one is not cryptic at all. Connection refused. Why is it refused? Because we didn't start the internet computer locally. So this is what we're going to do right now. So to start the internet computer locally, you use DFX start. So let's see the options. There's only one. Oh, there's two options. Okay. Right. We don't need the second one. We will always use DFX start as is. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use DFX start. For the purpose of developing, sometimes you want to use DFX start background, which gives you back the same prompt. In this case, though, what we're going to do is that we're going to run it locally here right now. And as you can see, internet computer client started. So we do have everything, everything running. And we have the binding to our port 8000, which was conveniently the one that we were trying to connect. And we have a front end. The replica itself is bound at 8080, and this is the actual internet computer replica instance, basically. And this here is our own front end. So we don't have a canister installed. That doesn't really matter. Let me bring in my my beautiful browser. Let me open up this here. So you can see that we already have an index.html and index.js. That is because this is the bootstrap. This is the bootstrap server, basically. This is a bootstrap HTML and JavaScript. It's a very simple piece of code that only knows how to call the internet computer to get an index.js and then run it, which is conveniently the only thing that we require, because that's the only thing we have right here. We only have an index.js that we want to call. So we will talk a little bit more about this error message. Let me zoom in just a little bit so that you guys can see what happens. And by the way, my chat is opened, so if you have any questions, you're welcome to chat with me. Sorry, I'm gonna pop out the chat actually. Okay. I'm not new to Twitch, but I haven't streamed in years, so this is a little bit of an experiment for me. But hopefully, if I do this regularly on a regular basis, this will get better with time. Okay, as I was saying, could not find the canister ID to use. We have multiple ways to solve that problem. We'll talk about the most normal one, but of course there are different ways to do that. So now DFX start is taking my prompt, so I'm going to open a new terminal here, and I'm going to do DFX. So we built already, so really what we want to do is canister install phone book, but you know, just because I don't want to type phone book too often or everything, I'm just going to install everything. Installing code with the canister ID, this thing. As you can see, this is the same canister ID that we've seen so far because everything is consistent. So it's installed. You can see here, successfully inserted an ingress message into an ingress pool application artifact pool, and it created a checkpoint. My checkpoint is really high, but hey, and it took 12 milliseconds to do that, so this is great. I love it. Actually, I'm curious about yeah, it's 53K. We're working to, it should be lower than that for a simple app like this, but of course everything is in progress, like I said. Okay. So one way to specify, like if I refresh this, of course, even if we have a canister here, it doesn't do anything. Of course, it doesn't know where to talk. So what I can do is do canister ID as a get parameter. Whoops. That's fun. Where was it? Here. Okay. So it installed code for the canister phone book with canister ID. This. Okay. And turn your name. Hey, that's progress, right? Because we know where we are now. We're in this here. So insert your name. So I'm just going to do world because I'm not that original. And I'm going to get hello world. And this happened using a call, an ingress message to the canister, and then creating a checkpoint, and then returning, running the code, returning it, packaging it, sending it to the JavaScript. The JavaScript just got like a bunch of stuff, unpacked it, and showed up the result, which was a text, hello world. Okay, cool. So why don't we change a little bit here? Just not much. Like we're gonna go like a little bit insane on the Motoko later on, but for now, like just to work, like DFINITY works. Here's your name. There you go. And maybe, yeah, essentially. Okay. So what we need to do is DFX build. We need to rebuild, and we need to reinstall. Okay, so those of you who are astute, will notice that the canister ID is different from the old canister ID. So we are kind of working towards being able to just reinstall canister and keeping the same canister ID. For now, like, just because updating a canister is not really something that we support right now. Every time that you build, we just choose a random canister ID for you. So this is a new canister ID. So if I do this, you'll see that it's the same old message because it's the same old canister. So if when I update my Motoko code, I need to change. Well, when I reinstall a canister, when I rebuild a canister, sorry, it's going to change the canister ID, which is why we need to do that. Again, world, because I'm not that original, but you can see that the message was updated. So this is a little bit of pain point, but we are working towards fixing that. There are different ways that we can do that. It's not an unsolvable problem. It's just something that we didn't focus on just yet. Yes. So okay. Okay, so I want to do a little bit more than this right now. So what I'm gonna do? Oh yes, I have one more thing that I want to talk about DFX a little bit. DFX supports a whole host of command and ways to interact. We only use build, start, and canister install so far. What I'm going to show you is that we can use canister call, with the phone book here. So we call the phone. Let's help it because that's what regular people do. They read the manual. So you can see flags, options, canister name, method name, and arguments. So canister call. I want to call canister name phone book. I want to call method greet. And I want to call argument. So this is the textual Twitch. This is the textual version of an ideal value. So for those of you who are used to protobufs, this would be the text file, ASCII file, I think. I don't remember exactly the name, but this is the counterpart. Like for those of you who were used to JSON, this would be the JSON part. This is the data part. The data language DSL for IDL. So basically, it's a tuple of a string that is Twitch. So if we do this, we'll see that the result is DFINITY works. Here's your name. So this is the latest canister. And if I call greet1, you'll see that canister X, well, this is just a number, but it should be the same ID, has no method greet1. Update methods, query methods, for now we will not talk about those, but there are differences, and we'll probably touch on those when we start implementing the Motoko. For now, let's get a little bit less Motoko-ish and more front-end-ish. So my React is very rusty. If you guys give me pointers in the chat, I'm not gonna like that would be awesome. This is the interactive part of our tutorial. I'm just kidding. I'm moving windows here so that I can see everything a little bit better. Okay, so we're gonna import. Well, as a matter of fact, we're gonna install first. We're gonna npm install React and React DOM. Okay. And so React and React DOM. So of course we import from React, and we import React component, and we import from React DOM. I think it's Bootstrap. No, it's not Bootstrap, is it? I think it's F12. Yes. Basically, I just want to, I think it's render. So let's do render. And then I'm going to do like phone book. Everything is going to be in the same file, I think, just because that's just constructor is already constructed. Render. And then I would love to use JSX. So div hello world. We're gonna do it like the wrong way, but okay. So JSX is gonna fail miserably. For the purpose of this, I'm just gonna do run build, which will run Webpack. It's gonna tell me where it fails, and of course Webpack config here. I need to there you go. Plugins. If I need Babel for JSX, I'm just gonna install TypeScript right away because I know TypeScript works with TSX and JSX. So let's install TypeScript and tsloader. Yeah, this is actually the right way to do stuff. In my opinion, TypeScript is just so good of a language anyway. And so it's a great compiler or transpiler or whatever you want to call it. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to use it in your tools. There you go. So I have TSX and TS. So let's just use JS or TSX, and basically we have a init to initialize and add our tsconfig.json. I don't think we need a lot of configurations here. I think the only thing that I need to make sure is that we support DOM. Yes, 2018. Lib should be yes, 2017, or just 18, since that's what we're targeting, but we don't really care. DOM should be there, and then allow.js should be there. This should be React, and I don't think there's any other changes for now. Consistent casing, we don't really care about it. There doesn't need to be an include here, so let's do this. Let's see what happens. And then I'm gonna look, yeah, there you go. So the only thing that was missing is the allow.js, and then like I said, we need library definitions for the DOM and the latest JavaScript that we want to target. And we want to have JSX that is targeting React. So let's go back to our JavaScript. Now that we actually have JavaScript working, kind of, we probably want to do React render dot wait, I'm gonna go back to patch. That is very bad. Yeah, if you guys want to laugh at me, please do that in chat. Okay, render is what I want. It's not renderer. Okay. There you go. Isn't that much better? So phone book, we want to render the phone book. We want to get the elements by tag name. I'm going to be very honest with you. I never remember this, and we're trying to still standardize it, so it might change between releases. ID app. So let's do that. Let's get element by ID of app. And this should work. Let's comment that. There is not going to be a lot of interaction, so let's add interactions to it. So if I remember well, I did that at some point. Yeah. So basically constructor props. Yeah. And then super props. And this dot state equal. Oh, why did I do that way? Message is quote quote. And so what we want to do here is this, and then this. Hello, so greetings, DFINITY, which are people that use DFINITY, I guess. And type in your name. So I want an input, and if I remember right, is going to be ID name value equal this dot state dot name, and then on change is going to be this dot on name change with the event, and that is it. So we actually need a name here, default. Let's put a default name, and then on name change event, which is it should be this dot set state. We're not gonna use any, and then name colon f dot target dot value. We could do Actually, this is weird. This is great. We're not going to do any kind of redux or anything like that, but you guys can imagine what it would look like. And then async do greet, which is a so const greeting equal await phone book dot greet with this dot state dot name. And okay, so I was getting greeting, so greeting should be the greeting itself. And so I'm gonna do like this dot set state, because that's what people do in yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna take a second here. This dot state with the message of greeting, which is exactly what happened. And so I'm gonna have a div greeting is boop boop, and then span. Let's be fancy. Oh, you know what? Font. Let's use like old school stuff. Like no, I'm just gonna do like style equal. Oh my god, text color blue, because I like blue. Blue is a good color. Blue is the color of my shirt. Blue is fun. And I'm gonna get I think it's just this, or I'm not sure, because like I said, oh yeah, it's just this dot state dot message. And of course what we're missing here is a button that on click does this dot greet. Click me. Click button get greeting. All right, so we do have something. Let's oops. I do not want to print my let's clear a little bit the output of the Internet Computer local client and do a DFX build. We're still using the greeting Motoko canister, so it doesn't work. This is probably a problem. npm failed to run. Oh, we do need to show up the output, the full output here, and I think we don't. That would be nice. So it didn't run because JSX expression must have one parent element. Because I put everything in two divs like the pleb I am, I need to be need to get better at this React thing. I think it might catch up. Oops. So DFX build. Oops. DFX build. And so we're building canisters, we're building the front end. The canister didn't change, but since we're bundling the front end with the canister, the actual output changed. So the canister ID did change. So if I do install.all, I don't want to install al, I want to install all. You see that the canister ID is actually D9 now. It starts with a D9, which is totally different than the older one. But if I do this, React is not defined. Oh, that is definitely cute. So CodeLemmer asks if there is a plan for something like -- watch. Yes, the build will have something like -- watch. What I would like to do is adding a command, and I'm thinking of replacing start to actually implicate like a cycle of watching. Like basically start would start a web server, start the internet computer locally, and then just like while I talk, and then build, reinstall the canister once it's built, or show up the error locally, so that you only have to do DFX start. You don't have to have two terminals. And if you actually want to do two terminals because of some reason, having a serve command would be the best way to handle that, in my opinion, of course. Yeah, there you go. That was colored. Thank you, Old Navy Seal and Numi Brillo. Yes, thank you, both of you. So Prophet asked what a canister is. I explained it a little bit earlier, but essentially a canister is it's your code plus your memory. It's the instance of your code running on the internet computer. So it would be the equivalent, I don't know, a DApp, basically, a distributed app. Your code is WASM. Your memory is memory. It's just a bunch of bits. And the front end is also contained in the canister. All right, so phone book. So I have a to-do app that works really well, and to-do apps has some of the properties that we're looking at for making this demo work. Okay, a to-do app has a table which contains values of certain types, which is exactly what a phone book is from a high-level point of view. So by cheating and looking at my code on another window, because you guys don't get to cheat, I can actually code really quickly my actual phone book. Okay, so if you want to look, okay, so I'm gonna not cheat as much, but essentially if you want to look at your cache, we have the standard Motoko lib. We do publish the code source for that. So the trick is that you have a .cache directory. I'm using Mac. Linux is basically the same. Windows, I know that all that I'm talking today works on Windows with the WSL, so Windows Subsystem for Linux. I know it works, but I want to put the caveat here that we're not officially supporting it. So if there's a bug in Windows, you are kind of on your own. But as far as I know, everything that I'm describing, everything that I'm talking about here, actually work on Windows. So 0413 is the version that we're using in DFINITY, and oops, that's not what I want. And inside of it, you can see a bunch of libraries, a bunch of binaries, executables, like the Motoko compiler and the node manager, which you probably don't care about. But if you are interested in seeing the Motoko standard lib, you can open the standard lib, and you will get a list of actual code. And you can see that there's a text module that allows a pen and to an iterator, and then there's a array module which allows some array operations. And of course there is a hash map module which allows us to create hash maps, and that is what I'm going to do here. So let's see. Okay, so in our Motoko code, and some of you pointed out that there are solutions to having highlighting. I'm unfortunately not gonna use them for now, but we are slowly coming up with proper stuff for syntax highlighting for Motoko. So it will happen. I just don't want to spend time maybe installing it and failing, and then being the laughing stock of Twitch. So we're gonna use hash maps. The way you do that in your code is that you import, you give it a name, and then you use it with stdlib mo. I think I'm gonna cheat a little. Yeah, it is. stdlib / hashmap. I think we saw hashmap.mo, and semicolon to say that it's the end. And now we're gonna do a type phone book map equal hashmap dot And then this is where we go to the definition of a hash map. We can see, okay, let's show it a little bit here. We can see that the hash map, oh, actually, sorry, it's a Python case. I'm not sure exactly, but this is the file. So a hash map is generic that takes a key and a value. So what we're saying is that a phone book map is going to be a hash map of a text to text, and this is a type. So keys are going to be names, I think, and values are going to be phone numbers for now. We're not going to do like addresses and stuff. We're just going to keep it simple. So we're going to do a name to phone numbers. And I'm going to push this here, back here, just because. And okay, let's keep going. So public function. So first, we should know that by default we do have a phone book instance. So it's a var of type phone book map equal, and this is where I'm always a little bit unclear on the creation. Because my Motoko is not very up to date. It's a I'm so sorry about this. Sorry, I'm gonna take a second to look it up. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to the sdk.definity.org, which is the definity.org is a the reference for everything SDK. So Motoko, the language, and then the DFX if you need something, if you have a question for this, and yes. So oh, that's funny. So there is already an example for phone books, but okay, well that's fair. They use an associated list. So what I'm gonna do, like, there is already a phone book example here, which I'm gonna smush on a little bit, but I'm gonna explain it as we go. So oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So okay. So public type phone book. Let's go a little bit better here. Public type name equal text. So name is a text. Public type phone is going to be a text. But public type, we'll go fancy right away. Entry is a actually, we're not gonna go fancy. We will define an entry later on by saying that an entry contains an address and an address, and then actually, you know what? Let's do it. Like a phone book entry is a record. So an object in JavaScript, a record of the name should be probably repeated, and then you know what? Description, like a vague description, which is a text, and a phone, which is a text too. There you go. So we're going to be a little bit fancy here. And the phone book map is going to be a map of name to entry. Although we can be, just because we don't want to index it too much, we'll just do import. list from mo standard lib/list.mo and import /list from mo stdlib/list.mo. We'll see how those interact later. And so we're not using a name. Name is a text, an entry is a text. We will validate phone. Phone should be probably a number actually, but we will just use a text. Okay, let's talk about numbers. So Motoko by default has natural numbers and signed integers, but those are infinite, so they're big ints actually. They're not. They don't contain a certain number of bits. So phone colon nat is saying that the phone should be a natural number, and this will take a better amount of memory than text, and will also allow us to make sure that at every part of the stacks this contains no letters, for example. I understand that some phone numbers could contain hashes and stuff like that. You are welcome to change my example at some point. So we want to create a list. Whoops. So type phone book map is going to be a an associated list of name to entry, and then public type. No, that's it. So the phone book itself. Okay. So the phone book itself is not public, it's an internal variable. This is going to be a nil list of course, name and entry. And it's going to be like this. Now, instead of greet, we're going to do a public function insert. And we're going to take a name, text, a description, text, and a phone, nat. We should probably be better than this. We can be better developers than this. Like, let's there you go. There you go. That way we define names and phones in terms of names and phones. So it's slightly better. And it returns a, sorry, my Rust, I'm using too much Rust right now. Async of unit type, which is void essentially. And we do let new book, and we ignore the second part of the tuple. Is soft list.replace. So we replace the name. Like, it's not insert, it's like upsert, I think, insert or update, basically, yeah, I think it's upsert name, but basically like insert or replace. No, so we'll still call it insert, but we're gonna replace anything that exists already, if it exists. And then, oh, I found an error in the phone book tutorial because it uses books instead of phone books. Oh no, okay, I see. It's just that it's named book, but sorry. New phone book equal replace inside phone book. So inside this variable, essentially, we're saying that you replace this name with this comparator, and we'll work on this for now. So find the value, and this is not a phone, this is an entry. So find the entry that matches this name using this comparison, and insert this phone. And this is an optional value, but we pass some phone here. If we want to remove, we can just say none, essentially. And then phone book is equal to the new phone book, because we created a new phone book that has the proper values, and so we set the phone book variables to that new value. Now we are missing a actually we're not just changing description. We are creating a new entry and we're replacing the entry. So name is name, description is description. I don't know what I'm doing. I have a feeling that this might fail, but we will discover that together. And we want to replace it with some new entry. So phone book is the new phone book. There you go. So what we need now is a name comparison. So left hand side is a name and right hand side is also a name. And we basically return if they're both equal. This doesn't seem like much, but and we don't need it to be public. So essentially this is returning a boolean, and this is how it works. I don't know if Motoko support lambda functions. I'm not sure about that. If somebody has the answer, that would be appreciated. If we could just basically remove this and move it in here, that might be a little bit simpler, but you know, this is more explicit, so in a way it's better. Now, if we use insert, we should probably have a get. So lookup, and a lookup by name, and return an async maybe entry. And we'll talk about something that I want to make sure that is get goes through, but basically this returns assoc list.find, which is a function. It returns an entry, and then phone book. We're looking in the phone book. We're looking for the name, and we're looking for the name using the equality of the name. Now we could be a little bit better than this, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can do like case insensitive search. Oh, thank you. Heisenberg says that lambdas are supported by using a func and name equal n equal m. And at this point, we're definitely going over the line limits, so let's make this prettier. If this works, that's great, because it looks a little bit better, in my opinion. But since we have to always put it, and I probably want to add some logic here. For now, we'll put it like this, because this is the real logic anyway. The lookup should be case insensitive, but the insertion should be case sensitive, so we can have multiple. So we keep this. We keep the case. Okay. So what happens if I do dfx build? 22.5. I need to put semicolon, I think. Yep, I need to put semicolons. All these semicolons. Okay, sorry about that. So this could be potentially working better. Let's clear the screen. Syntax error 2423. So 2423. This is not working out. I'm gonna cheat a little and go somewhere where I can see what I'm looking for. Oh, Old Navy SEAL has a good question. How does the browser handle option types? So funny thing is that JavaScript already has an option type, in the sense that undefined is a value, and you could have undefined or non-undefined. And we'll talk a little bit about like this is going to be a really good starting point to discuss exactly how JavaScript handles all these different value. How does it handle this? How does it handle the option type? So yes, so I still have the same error because I did not fix it, which is definitely a true statement. And I did not fix it because I want to look it up here. Oh, it's equal. Okay, okay. I can get behind that. I can get behind that. Equal and equal, like this, with semicolon for the end of the line. And it's the rest should be okay. So let's try this. Unbound variable cannot infer type of forward variable name. Unbound variable L. This is an IDL error. So the IDL found an unbound variable. Line 16. There you go. L does not exist because I did not type the right thing. I imported it as list and not L. Okay, so that's, I hope, slightly better. A name is a name is a name is a text. I am not sure about this one because this should work. Type of forward variable name. So let's take a look here. Okay. Cannot infer. So this is new, as in I've never seen this. So I could look at my previous example and try to figure out why it happens, because sorry, I'm gonna take a little bit of time to figure this one out. So we define an entry, which is a public type, and it works. And then so when we define an entry, we actually have so this is an async function, so we should not even know about this. The name is defined as text, and then the name equal name is defined properly. This is an entry that contains this record. Thank you, Galwa. He says basically that these are non-useful because this is already a statement and a statement, I don't know, ending. I don't know how to say that. The equivalent of a semicolon. Oh, okay, so somebody is pointing to me, Stanley is pointing to me that you cannot shadow names. So name equal name doesn't seem to work. So he's using underscore in some places. So let's try this and see if this works better. If so, I would consider this as a bug that probably should be fixed at some point. So yeah, so everything should be properly renamed. Let's try again. Oh, well, this is a different error, which is interesting. So raised at file type, raised from file list. Assert failure type. Okay. All right, this looks like an internal compiler error, which means that we're definitely making some progress. Yeah, so apparently we cannot do associated types yet inside inside an actor, so we will have to make it outside the actor for now, just as a regular type. It's not public. We won't have it in JavaScript because we do have those types in JavaScript. and type error unbound type name, because of course now name and phone are external and entry is external, so nothing will we'll live with that for this demo. There you go. Let's see if this works better. Well, it worked. Congratulations. Okay, so we're totally on block. Apparently it's a known bug. They're working on it. It's going to be fixed at some point. This should be available inside the actor so that we can publish our typings too. And of course, at some point we will generate, so I just want like to point out that at some point we will generate not just the DID files, which I'll talk about. Oh, look at that. The types are still propagated. Interesting. But anyway, the DID files here, not just that we're going to create a DID and a JavaScript DID, but we'll also have a d.ts so that you can actually see the actual typings. Okay, so as you can see, a type phone is a natural, a type name is a text, an entry is a record of description, name and phone, and the service has two methods, insert and lookup. They take these things and they return this, and they take a name and return an optional entry. So one thing that I wanted to talk about, and I probably should have taken the little time to talk about this, but it's the concept of query versus update. So canisters can export two types of function. The first type is an update function, which these are. They just public function lookup at async entry. The second type, which we're going to move here, we're going to public query function. It's a query function. So the difference is that query functions work with a immutable state of the memory. For example, we're not changing anything here. We're just looking up and returning. So we can actually define this as a query function. The implementation's details of this is that update functions go through a consensus and go through replication and duplication of data. It goes through different validation to make sure that the state is consistent before and after, and it's a way more secure function call. But by being more secure, it's also way slower and require more computation in general. So if you can, and query also are faster in general, they're just almost instantaneous. If you can actually use query functions instead of update functions, you should always use query. So if you don't have to modify your state, which in this case is the phone book, because that's the only global state that we have, that's the only heap state that we have. If you don't need to modify it, you should use lookup. And if you need to change it, because we change it here, then we cannot add query. If I was to do query here, that would actually error out. At some point in the stack, I cannot promise that it won't compile, but it will definitely not work when we start using it. Okay, so now we built it. What do we do when we built it? We installed it. So one thing that did not fail but probably should have is that the JavaScript code, we didn't change the JavaScript code. So if I try to use that, it's going to try to call a greet function, which does not exist on our interface. So if we go to the did face, there is no greet here. It's insert and lookup. So the JavaScript will fail. We'll update the JavaScript later, but for now, what I want to show is that canister call phone book lookup, and then again we need the IDL typing. So I'm going to put my name in here, and we'll see that none. It returns none because there's none. It just doesn't exist. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert one. And we're going to use the command line because you should always be familiar with the command line for now. This is a useful tool when doing like end-to-end testing of your back-end testing without the JavaScript, because you don't want the JavaScript all the time. And so it takes 3 arguments, right? Yeah, it takes the name, the description, and the phone. So I'm going to put my name. I'm going to put a definition, And I'm gonna put my phone. Now, don't tell my wife that I put my real phone in here, but essentially, there you go. Now it returns unit type, and if we look here, we can see that it actually called it. It actually inserted the ingress message and everything. Yeah, if you think that's a real phone number, I have news for you. But yes, thank you for believing. So I'm gonna look up my name now, and I should receive an optional record of Hans, yours truly, and the phone number that we got. Yay! It's great. The only thing that we don't have here is the proper, so these are hash numbers. For multiple reasons. So the way IDL encodes records is basically it hashes the key the key into a number, which I think is 32 bits, but don't quote me on that. And since we're not using the IDL file itself to unencode it, we have to show you the actual hash, which probably don't make sense. But we'll see in JavaScript where that actually gets fixed. Well, actually, let's do that now. So if I go to main.did again, well, we saw that file. Now, if I go to the JS version of the did, that it's becoming a little bit more interesting. So name is an IDL.text, which is fair. It's a text. Phone is a natural. And entry is a type record with name, description, and phone, which match the name type, which is here, an IDL.text, and a phone. So we're describing our schema for our types that we described in Motoko. Now, the two functions are insert, which is a function that takes a tuple, but actually an array of these three, and returns nothing. And lookup is something, oh, interesting. Sorry. Apparently, yeah, I did put query, but I did not rebuild. So let's rebuild. Because there should be more to it. I don't know. If it's not there now, that's going to be an issue. Yes, there you go. So it takes a name and returns an option of entry, and it gets a query. It's a query type, so these are attributes for the function. So it's a query function. Okay, how do we want to do our little phone book? Yeah, no problem. Happy to answer questions all the time. So we still reserve the props. Let's work a little bit backward here. Let's work on our interface. Oh, so before I forget, git add, because we want to do like checkpoints. So checkpoint 0, phone book, Motoko implementation. There you go. Now we can work from nothing. So the state. So let's work a little bit backwards. So our phone book. So let's put a big phone book title here, because that's awesome. Because we want the document the title equal phone book, DFINITY phone book example in big letters. Let's be like clear about what this is. Let's be happy about what this is. Let's blow our user's mind. And so we're gonna do like a insert new phone book entry. Insert or update new phone book entry. And we're gonna do a div of name. Oh yeah, somebody has a question in the chat that are we trying to implement the language server client for VS Code? Yes, we are. You can use the DFX binary for that. It doesn't. You still have to know what you're doing. The plugin will call DFX to actually start the language server. But for now, since we don't publish the plugin yet, it's basically useless to just start the language service. But you can. There is a command for that. We just hide it from user because we had some users being confused on what the command was doing. Because, like I said, if you don't know what you're doing, there you go. If you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna have a bad time. So, okay, let's do the same. Actually, you know what? ID equal new entry name, and then oops. Oh. Description and phone number, and yeah. And you know, because I come from the 70s, I'm gonna use a table. In my days, table were used all the time to create like beautiful interfaces. Now you guys have absolute and relative positioning, and it's totally not working well. But yeah, I'm just doing that so that it's aligned. And I'm not a designer. Yeah. Okay. Name. Description. Phone. Okay. And we do a button. Insert or update. And then what we're gonna do is on click, we're gonna do this dot do insert. Oh. Okay, one problem at a time. Okay, like I said, let's do a do insert. So we don't need state here. We don't really need state. We can do insert. Okay, thank you guys. And so const entry equal, and the name, so we're gonna insert with the name, it's gonna be document dot get element by ID, and the ID is new entry name dot value, because that's what it is, and then the description. So sorry about the background noise. That is my child that does not want to go probably eat or take a nap, which is about that time. This is noon, so it should be lunchtime. He probably doesn't want to eat. Babies. So sorry about the background noise. Okay, so do insert gets this, and now we have phone book. And if you remember well, oh, actually, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I don't need an entry. Let. We'll fix that in a little bit, probably by having a function takes a record instead of, but name, desk, phone, that's how it works. And yeah, that's exactly how it works. Now we can remove this, and we can do another here, which is lookup name, input, ID equal lookup name, and with a button that says lookup, and on click of that button, it's going to be a this dot lookup, I don't want this out of this. Okay, and async lookup, is going to be let entry equal. So let name equal this dot document. No, not this. Document dot get element by ID of lookup name dot value, and the entry is going to be phone book. Well, actually, it's going to be a little bit, you know, lookup. So by name, yeah, we look up by name, and this is a promise that return an entry, an optional entry. And for those who are wondering what an optional entry looks like, we'll do this instead of, you know, doing something weird. Well, updating the UI. Okay, and we'll update the UI once we're ready to do that. So DFX build. We build everything. Hopefully it passes. All bets are off. There you go, it did pass. 6 seconds, good build, good stuff. And then we install all. Let's go here. There you go. Oh, error happens. Cannot set property because I'm an idiot. I did this change a little bit too quick. You guys did not catch it. This was a test, and you guys failed the test. I'm gonna say this. I'm standing by it. Okay. Installing code for this canister ID. So we pass it as a canister ID here. There you go. Oh, that looks good. That looks good. If I do Hans and I look it up, it's an array of null. And if I do name Hans, description yours truly, and my phone is 123455551231337. Insert.update. Invalid NAT argument. Oh, it's a string. Well, yes, that will not do. Thank you, code, for telling me exactly what needs to happen. There you go, because it's an integer. So this is, don't do this at home. We should really use a text and validate, but we'll do that. We'll do that as a next step. We should very yeah. So there's a question about the linked up example. We wanted to avoid the canister ID being here for the demo, I think, if I remember right. There are multiple ways to do this. You can do it in the local storage, but since we're developing and we're like going through the motion of creating new canisters over and over, it's easier to just pass it here. But you can also put it in local storage here, which would be DFINITY Canister ID and then the same string. And there is an order of precedence. If it's as a get query param, we pass it. If it's not, then we use the local storage. If it's not in the local storage, we just show up an error. We're working on discovery and like how to remove all of this. This should either be phone book here, and we figure out this number by some other means, or this should be. This is a random number. This is actually the way this is built is right now we just create a random 64-bit integers. We encode it, so this is 64. And because the way the IDs are generated is this is a validation value. So this is basically the CRC checksum of this. But yeah, this is a random number. There's no string, there's no meaning to it. Okay, so continue here. I don't even need to have like a certain number of apps. So yay, something happened. Okay, so as you can see, 47, 10, 47, 10 here. So I think that was the one. So let's go back here and do canister call.
lookup of Hans. Well, what do you know? So this is inserted from the JavaScript. This was inserted from the JavaScript, and we used dfx command line to look it up on the canister, do the call. But if I do the call here, I should still get it. And as you can see, I get an array of a name, description, and phone number. We'll talk a little bit about phone here. There is a reason this is a complex data structure. Ooh, sounds fun, fancy. I don't know where this comes from. I don't know where this comes from. I think you are getting. Yes. Okay. So now I know what it comes from. Oh my god. So you're basically getting. Okay. So for those who can't see, I'm gonna paste it in a temporary file, but the linked up example, like I said, is not great in the sense that it doesn't. This thing. It's not like you cannot build it if you don't have the latest master of both the SDK repo, the Motoko compiler, and the Internet Computer. So if you don't have those masters, you cannot use it. Now this though, what it does is once you build, so let's do this. Once you build, like I said earlier, you get Canister's phone book, you have a _ canister ID. So if let's say I want to show it to my friends, like I said, it's random bits, right? So if you do xsd print this, that's the x value of it. And the CRC is calculating, so let's go all the way here. CD31, as you can see, this is the exact same sequence of bytes as this. And like I said, C5 is a checksum of this value essentially. And so what the CRC part of this does is that it calculates if I do this, it calculates the checksum of it. So if I replace ID with, export ID equal, sorry, I'm using fish, so if you think that's not valid, it is. And then if I use this, no module named CRC, so I need to have CRC installed, which, I probably shouldn't get, but I don't remember. It's Python, pyenv, I don't remember. But essentially, it calculates, basically it would calculate automatically the C5. So it's just a way to getting this number. The other way to getting this number is that we show it when you call canister install. So the last, that's Python 2. The last number that we got was CD3031 blah blah blah, which happens to be this number. And so this is also the canister ID. When you install it, that's how you get it. So you can calculate the C5 manually and get the canister ID from the file that we output, or you can just dfx canister install. Maybe we should have a canister list or something like that shows you canister IDs in the proper way. But these are all feature requests that could be used. We need to check the checksum because when you start copy and pasting, errors happen, and it's useful to have a checksum. Okay, so now let's look up and put things in here. So once we look up, OPT entry, since it's an array, so we do let entry equal OPT entry, of course, and then we're gonna do document that get element by ID, new entry name. I could do better than that. I'm sure that all the React experts are cringing right now. But this is what I'm gonna do, and you guys are welcome to improve on it later. Okay, so there's a problem. JavaScript values are floats, are doubles actually. They're double floating point numbers, so they take 64 bits. Infinite naturals can take more than 64 bits. So the question is, how do I get 64 bits? How do I get something that I can use as a string? And the way you do that is you entry.phone to string. Or you can do to number. Or you can do to string 16 to get an hexadecimal string. So the type of phone is actually a big number. Big number is a library that is available on NPM. Big number, if I remember, or .js, I think. Published 9 years ago. That's probably not the one I had in mind. Published 8 months ago. That's the one I had in mind. Okay, so this is a library that can actually represent any big number. The reason we're using a library and not BigInt is because, unfortunately, BigInt is surprisingly not used that much all around. Safari does not support it. IE11 does not support it. iOS does not support it. And QQ browser, which probably nobody uses, does not support it. But because of Safari, because we need to support Safari, we can't use BigInt. So that's unfortunate, but that's the truth. So in the meantime, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do entry phone to string, and we're just gonna use it as a string. So DFX canister build, DFX install, and again we're gonna get the canister ID. There you go, this number here, and there you go. So now, of course, because I created a new canister, I get new memory. And I cannot read property of name of null. Oh, yeah. We should probably take care of that. If entry is null, then entry equal name is nothing, description is nothing, and phone is nothing. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Also, because we're nice people and we don't want people to insert letters, we probably should do type here. Number. I think that's the way. Inspect properties. Input type is text. I can't change it. I could in JavaScript, but I don't want to because I've just did the change. So I think that's the proper way to do this. So now I cannot insert letters. I can insert E because it's a valid part of a number, and also can do this, which could be really fun. If you guys want to take a video of this and put it on Programming Humor, that's great. Please insert your phone number one at a time. Okay, so let's try again. Like, look up myself. Oh, hey, it doesn't crash anymore, which, progress. We're living in the future. And insert an update. And now if I do this and I look up, it's going to show up. If I change myself, I look up, it's going to erase it. If I insert or update and then I look up, it's updated. If I refresh my page, it's updated. It's like the value. And also if I kill the client, and then I clear, and then I wait like minutes and minutes and minutes, and we do DFX start again. We're waiting for it to boot up. It's replaying a bunch of things. And now if I refresh, and I look myself up, you can see that the memory was properly persisted. And I think that's gonna be it for my demo for today. And just remember, like, try DFX 0.5.0, hack it out. Without you, none of this would be possible, and it's really awesome. Thank you.